All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Bradley Jacobs. I'm a Mylance founder and CEO. I'm here with Kevin today. Kevin, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't we just start out with an overview of you, just professional career, kind of what you've been doing to date?
Yeah, for sure. My background's a little similar to yours. I've been in SaaS startups, mostly in B2B. When I left college, I was on track to go be a developer, but I ended up starting my own company halfway through college and was like, man, like there's so much on the sales and marketing side that I've never even looked at. And I fell in love with that. And so from there, I immediately kind of went off the track that I was supposed to, which was to be a programmer, and got a marketing job at a local startup in Phoenix, Arizona. Did another and another, and then when COVID hit, I got let go, and I started. I kind of on the same day I called someone up, and I was just like, you know what, like this is the best opportunity for me to, finally get a little bit of a push to do what I've always wanted to do, which is freelance full time.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about you started a company in college. That's pretty rare. What happened to that?
It's a funny story. Kind of the preface of it is I took an entrepreneurship class with someone I still know. He's a great entrepreneur still, and so I took that class, and my basically the moral of the story was if you don't make revenue or with your business model or get 100 users on an app, you fail. And I got really interested in it, and I actually I'm kind of I'm a very good student, so things come easy to me. And so I actually spent the entire semester just focused really hard on that entrepreneurship class because it was interesting. And so me and my best friend, we made an app. And then we spent the entire semester building an app thinking this is going to be amazing, fantastic, all these things. And then we got to the last week and no one wanted to use it. And I kind of was just like, oh, wow, like there's a lot more to business, all this stuff than just, the building. And so I actually took that Christmas to just read a bunch of business books. And from there, I was just like, man, one of my favorite books I read was To Sell is Human. I was just like, man, I'm a developer. I'm an introvert. Like, I've never tried to sell anything. And so I was just like, man, how do I like kind of take what I'm good at right now and start learning to sell? And so as I made a app in college, what I ended up doing was selling app development for other student entrepreneurs, which was filled with a lot of lessons. Still work with some of the people who helped me along the way there, but typical low pricing, trying to get MVPs out, and so that was my first business with where I started selling stuff, and that actually ended up building a lot onto where I ended up going today.
Wow. It's crazy how you could say, okay, we built this app, we got no users, the business kind of failed, right? But it set so many things in motion for you, right? I mean, the learnings, the readings, the starting of this other business where you were selling app development. I mean, it's crazy how that quote failure, which is not at all, it's really just a learning and experience, does this for you.
Yeah. And I think to a certain extent, especially what I've learned from this year is like, there's a lot of moments where you're like scared to fail, and I've gone through that a lot. But it's also kind of funny when you do, because you kind of realize that it wasn't that big of a deal, and it was a good thing that you even like started and tried. Like I've over the past year of like freelancing, I've failed at a lot of things I've tried, and I'm really grateful that I did, because it wasn't as like nerve-wracking as when I was thinking like, man, maybe I shouldn't try this. And then I did it and I was just like, well, that didn't work out. But you know what? I learned a lot along the way.
Right. I mean, it basically is validating that there really are no failures, right? The failure is an experience, a learning, and usually set something else in motion, almost always, right? So that fear of failure is so common. I have it, you have it, probably everybody has it to some degree. And if you can get over that, it really opens so many doors by just trying new things.
Yep. And at the end of the day, as long as you're patient along the way and, just keep trying. I mean, I've had a great like first year of full freelancing, but underneath all of it was, 4 years of, working at other places and always doing side hustles, always doing a little bit of contracting. And so as long as you kind of keep moving forward on it, it ends up building up and leading to a success.
Yeah. So in your full-time jobs before COVID, before you got laid off, what were those jobs? What did you do?
Yeah, so my first job was at a local company called FetchRev, and they were a SaaS company. It was the first ever time I ever worked in SaaS, and I was in Martech, which I actually, as soon as I got the job offer, I looked it up and I was just like, I have no clue what this is. Like, I've been doing advertising and like funnels for X amount of time. And so I actually looked it up and like tried to figure out what the job was after, the description got handed to me. And it's pretty funny. I ended up taking the job over, doing kind of a development role. For a lot of reasons, but I just liked marketing more. And it's funny because that thing that I looked up for like an hour and like tried to figure out what it was ended up being like the perfect fit for me down the road. So that was my first job. I did a lot of, HubSpot stuff, which is what I do now full time. And I also learned a lot on like paid lead generation, which is also a big portion of what I do now. And that job ended up giving me like my first more or less case study to, tell stories and tell people like, hey, this is how I kind of help this company. And then from there, I did another job where I was thinking about kind of getting back on that developer track. I took a design job, so like a UX UI developer job mixed with marketing. Ended up not being a good fit for me because I was a marketer, and I kind of went back on to the track of like doing more marketing stuff, doing more martech, and that's when I worked at a company called Quick, and really focused on wearing a lot of hats, and especially in the startup space. I'm sure you know it, working at Uber. There's a lot you can do, and so while I was there, I was able to use a lot of my skill set, which was, web development, design, CRM management, and paid advertising. And so from that experience as well, along with all the other ones, I was able to build a lot of skill sets. I also learned how to code. I already know how to code. I learned how to start using Python for business cases. And so it was really good for all those things because I always had, I even told my manager at my third job, like, I'm working here so I can consult. Like, that's my end goal. That's what I want to do. I want to, be like you. And and what was great was he was just like, yeah, sounds great. Like, let's get you there. And so, I think those all helped me to kind of take the leap and have a little bit of something in the back of my pocket to refer to on, what I've done in the past, and have a really strong portfolio. Something I find very funny is as much as, I have a lot of those skill sets, focusing on one of them ended up being the hardest part of consulting, is like figuring out, of everything that I like doing, what's the one that makes the most sense, provides the most value, and, is a business, which is something that was new for me.
Yeah. We can talk. There's so much there we can dig into. So many good things. One of the things, okay, so you get laid off, and what happens?
Yeah. To be honest, like, my mindset at that moment was like, man, this sucks. But honestly, like, I'd been used to, seeing some friends like go, fired, and I'm a big believer of like, at the end of the day, like, a job is a job, and as much as it's you build relationships there, the only reason those go away is if you let them. I'm still friends with everyone I've ever worked with, all those things, and so I was pretty just like, okay, they're doing the best they can during a pandemic, and they've done really well recovering too, and I'm their biggest cheerleader. But for me, I was just like, okay, you know what? Like, for a while I had, and even when I left my first job, that was kind of my first time when I was just like, man, maybe I should like take this itch and like just run with it. And I think to a certain extent, I was at that time not really ready for it, and not like the word I always think in my head is like courageous enough to take that leap of faith, which is really tough. And so at that time, I ended up just taking a job. Right after that, there was like a week where I was like, okay, time to go after it. But when this happened, I was just like, everything was pausing in the world, right? And everything flipped upside down. And so I was just like, you know what? Like, this is the best time. Someone gave me a push, and I really didn't think about it much more than that. Like, it was on a Friday morning, and I was just like, okay. Like, I called one of the contractors who had like been a mentor to me. And I was just like, hey, what should I know? Like, I'm going to do this. Let's get started. And it was funny because while I was working at my at all the jobs, for about 2 years, I had my phone background with like revenue goals that I wanted for consulting. And it was really funny because starting on that Friday afternoon to I think Sunday of that night, I'd hit that revenue goal in
Wow.
in just like commitments, and it was really funny. And honestly, I was just like floored because it was just one of those things where it's just like, man, this actually is something I can do, and like it wasn't as shocking and as like scary as I thought it would be. There's a lot that went into that. Having those relationships beforehand, I think at the end of the day, it just showed I had built a lot of relationships where people were like, hey, like Kevin needs some work. Let's give it to him. Let's have him help out. And so I think it was kind of one of those moments where like everything kind of worked together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can definitely talk about the importance of relationships and getting clients, but I'm curious. Okay. So walk us through the timeline. You get laid off, you call your mentor. You're like, okay, I'm doing this thing. Tell me everything I need to know.
Yeah.
What happens?
So I love networking would be the best way to start it. I've been networking ever since college. I like people. I like building relationships. I mean, it's why you and I are friends. And at the end of the day, I've just been doing that for even during college. And there's a local startup event in Phoenix that I go to every single month. Just every single time, not with the pandemic, obviously. But at this moment, I was just like, I think I just radiated for like 3 years, just like this hunger to like do my own thing. And so I think when I kind of told the people in my life that like, hey, this is something I want to do, a little bit added in the sob story. I think people showed up and people were like, yeah, like, let me talk to some people. Or, some of my best clients came from people I had had conversations with. And I kind of told them like, this is the path I want to go on. I don't know when I'm going to get there, but I want you helping me. I want to, have you along on the ride. They just all kind of came together. And that's kind of how I got my first couple clients, along with like, the CEO of my old company helped everyone, land on their feet during the pandemic. And so he referred me to a lot of clients. But also it had that element of like, hey, like, we're all trying to figure out what's going on. I'm finally kind of going on my own path, and you knew that this is where I wanted to go. Do you have anything I can help with you with? And at the end of the day, that's what gave me kind of the push.
Yeah. It sounds like you built up goodwill almost throughout your entire career, starting before your career.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because at the end of the day, like, he'll hate me for telling this story, but one of the people I love working with, I met him at that networking event I was talking about, that I just kept going to and kept showing up. I had told him, hey, I got let go, but, I'm making the most of it. I'm becoming a consultant just like I have always wanted to. And he was like, hey, we're working on this project. And he sent a message to his co-founder who I also know very well now, and he's just like, this is Kevin. He's a beam of optimism and just a beacon of hope to the world. And I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, this is hilarious. But it's funny, like little things like that of just, positivity and, building relationships, they go a long way with business, people like working with people they know they can trust. And at the end of the day, even getting ready for talking with you about this, I'm like, man, what should I even tell people? Like trust is probably the most important thing across the entire board. Like, yeah, you can do things, but being reliable, accountable, like people knowing that they can trust you is the only thing that really helps you build a business built on, yourself. And so I think that networking and just building those relationships kind of worked out.
Yeah, it's such a good lesson. People focus so much on rates they're going to charge, how they present themselves, what their LinkedIn looks like, their personal website. And you haven't mentioned a single one of those things, right? It's about the personal relationship and the trust and the rapport, right? It's head and shoulders more important than pretty much anything else.
Yeah. And I mean, both you and I have had experience in, what we offer, right? But I think at the end of the day, I mean, I love your story about, and you told me when we first met about charging that high retainer, right? At the end of the day, people have problems and they want to give them they want them handled and they want to give them to people they trust. And the price, it's important, but at the end of the day, like I even think about it when I run my business, what people are looking for is knowing that you're going to run with that problem to the very end, and they might not even need to touch it other than, tell you a little bit about the problem. And so that's what ends up being the most important at the end of the day.
Yeah. Can you give us an idea of numbers of how well it's going today for you, or what you're able to share from a success standpoint?
Yeah. I'm really open, except on video, just because I don't want to be like conceited by any means or whatever. Everyone sees different things, but for me, it's been a good experience across the board. Like I said, I beat what was on my phone background in those first 3 days. That was for the whole month, but like I think at that moment I was just like, wow, okay, I can do this. And then 3 months in during Q2, then I went down to like, oh my God, I'm making no money because I didn't add retainers or all these things onto these clients, and I didn't ask for more work, and which was kind of like a little bit of a scary time. It was just like, man, like, there's no revenue coming in. How am I supposed to keep doing this? And then was even funnier in December, it immediately shot up to 2 times what I was used to, and it was just, wow, like, success isn't linear with this stuff. It's you got to go through the bumpy rides, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of us get into that mindset of like, hey, I have to be making the same every single month. And I think now for me, it's been really empowering to see like, oh, 1 month I could be the worst in my mind, right? And then another month it'll wipe out everything. And so for me, I've ended up making more than what I did at my previous job and all my jobs. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to think, someone just told me what to say. But like, I'm close to about 2 times what my salary was as of today. So, and kind of looking a little bit more towards, what to do with extra time and, going towards, figuring out, what I like to do and stuff like that. And so that's been a really great experience, figuring out like, hey, maybe I want to travel a little bit or work on some projects that aren't revenue based, which is very difficult. But yeah, that's been good for me. I think the biggest thing that's been a struggle across the board, especially in contracting, is like, when do you, I wouldn't say call it quits, but when do you like say like, this is what I want? And like, how do you balance all those things? Because I think for a lot of us, especially when we come out of the the job world, we're thinking like, I got to work all this time and I got to make the most possible. And now I'm kind of just thinking about, how do I build more impact and help more people and, do all these things, or have more time. And then when you have more time, you ask those questions of like, how do I help more people? How do I, do work I enjoy, which I'm sure you kind of ran into, seeing as, that's exactly what you do now. So yeah, it's going pretty well for me. It's not all rainbows and butterflies for sure. There's tons of, other things that go along with it, but it's, for me, this has been what I've wanted to do forever. And like, since leaving college, and, there's a big opportunity cost for being a marketer compared to a developer. And I did that because, one, it was what I enjoyed, but even more so, like, I knew I wanted to run a business, and I knew that was how I wanted to do it. And so it's really been a good experience of like, hey, like, this is, exactly what I was trying to do, and I got here. So it's been pretty fun on that end.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I'm curious, how many hours a week? You said you more than doubled your previous salary. How many hours a week are you working these days?
So I recently ramped down. I worked really hard during the first part of this year. So I was probably at about 40. I've had, some moments where I like, not much, but like worked weekends, worked nights. I mean, those are the benefits of being a contractor and also the cons of being a contractor. And so I've kind of gotten that under control, and now I'm kind of winding back now that I'm kind of trying to figure out like, what do I want outside of, revenue and all that stuff. And so I'm working about 20 to 25 hours a week. It's probably a little lower, to be honest, just because it's really focused on value and, goodwill and all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's about where I'm at now, just because I'm not working the extra 20 that I was previously.
Well, I mean, congrats, right? I mean, you set out to be a contractor, work for yourself. You're now doubling your salary in half the amount of time, right? I mean, it's really is. I know it does beg all of those questions of, okay, now how do I spend the free time? I lived it also. I'm with you. And everyone probably watching is like, oh, what a great problem to have. It's like, okay, well, I got a little existential when it happened to me. I'm like, why am I here on this planet? I
actually had to call the same client that's the Beacon of Hope one, and I we weren't working at the time anymore, but I was just like, hey, like, I know you went through this too. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do with the free time and, all this stuff? And, the answer, I'm still working through it. I actually just hired a coach to help me with it. But
there you go.
The answer is find more meaningful work. Find, ways to, I think one of the things that is a downside of being a consultant, I know you don't want me saying that at all, but is that
it's the real truth. Go ahead.
True. There's a lot of downsides along with the pluses, but some of the big ones for me is I don't have coworkers, and like I said, I am friends with like literally everyone I have ever worked with still. Like I like my coworkers, and so that's been one of those things where you have less of that of like, giving to help other people. And so that's something that I'm trying to actively work on a little bit, because even though, you do have relationships and everything, it's a little more transactional. You're not spending the same amount of time together because you're cut up over, multiple clients. And so, that's kind of the next step is figuring out what, and honestly, the answer is probably focused on content or, figuring out how to, like you're doing, help other people kind of hit where they want to go.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up in a minute, but leave us with the one piece of advice you'd have to a newer freelancer. Maybe they walked into their first client, they got kind of lucky, and then they realize how great it is to work for yourself. And they're like, okay, I want to grow this business. I want to find more clients, but I don't know how. What would you tell them?
Honestly, if it's a client problem, right, which a lot of people have, I think at the end of the day, it's really about, and this is so basic, but it's about conversations and relationships, right? Like, And I even think about it, like a lot of people get into the thought of like, I need these pitches, I need these rates. It's like what we were talking about. Everyone thinks about the technical part of being a consultant. And it's a very hard thing to give advice on, because at the end of the day, it matters. But what I think matters the most is building relationships with more people. Like I don't do it as much as I should, and I network a ton. But if someone wanted to, really build a business, the two things I'd recommend more than anything is interview a lot of people, like we're doing right now. Builds great relationships. People love talking about themselves. And then it's hilarious. And then the other one is get coffee with someone, a different person every single day. That's a really tough one. But you'll be shocked knowing 30 more people in your life by the end of a month will literally change everything. Not everyone you have to have a great relationship with, but at the end of the day, like, there's all the things that are technical about the business side, but at the end of the day, you won't, be able to sell anything if you don't have trust with other people and you don't have relationships with other people.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. I'm going to have that as my challenge, to meet a new person every day. I mean, it's incredible. I can only imagine the impact it would have.
Yeah. And, I didn't even do that. So I'm giving advice I haven't super taken, but, there were some days where, especially during my low month, where I just messaged people and not even trying to sell them. Yeah. That's the worst way to go about this. The best way to go about this is get them to talk about themselves on an interview that you record and makes them look good, would be my recommendation, because asking for coffee is a little in between on the sales side. But at the end of the day, just go into relationships without asking for anything. Even better, I wouldn't say compliments, but, say hey, I admire your company. You guys do this very well. Here's my thoughts, or stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, we get so focused on the revenue, the rates, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the people who make decisions are the people who enjoy working with you or enjoy talking with you.
I love it. Yeah. One thing I'll add is you can add some value to them in the area of expertise you have, right? Mm-hmm. Give away a few tidbits for free in your field, right? How can you automate your marketing, or how can you use HubSpot, or how can you find this discount on HubSpot, whatever it is, right? And just giving away something for free, as kind of a thank you for their time. And it also validates you, right? You showcase your experience, and it's great.
Yeah. And just one last thing before we wrap up on that is I've tried the typical cold outreach stuff. And it works. It works for sure. But it has nothing on networking. Networking at the end of the day, it's a little harder to do at scale. But it's so much more powerful. And the word networking gets a bad rap from other people because it's combined with sales. And sales aren't a bad thing by any means. But people have this mentality on it. But at the end of the day, when you go in not expecting things from other people and really going through trying to help other people, not everyone will engage with you, but the people who are fun and, very optimistic, the people you want to do business with, they'll engage. They'll say, hey, yeah, I'll do coffee or whatever, especially during a pandemic where no one gets to talk to anyone.
Yeah. No, I love it. Awesome. So many good pieces of advice and learnings from your time. Congrats on your success. It's been fun to check in with you here and there throughout your journey and see you go through it. So congrats on that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can our viewers, if they want to find you, do you have a website? Is it LinkedIn? Where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn's best. I have a website, but at the end of the day, like I'm saying, have a conversation with me. I'd enjoy it more.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. We'll find Kevin on LinkedIn. And that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
Bye. All right.